Hey guys, what's going on? It's Mark with Spiguyver Backpacking. Thank you for joining me today. I'm out here with some gear to talk with you guys a little bit about. A week ago, I was out along the Ouachita Trail, out in the Ouachita Mountains area, where I did the Horse Thief Springs Loop, the Billy Creek Trail, and some of the Ouachita Trail. And so while I was out there, I tried out some different gear, used some of my standard tried and true stuff. And so today I wanted to talk with you guys a little bit about hits and misses with the gear that I was using that weekend. Right now I'm in the Ridge Runner, the Warbonnet Ridge Runner, which was something I took out there. First time taking a bridge hammock out on a backpacking trip. So I wanted to tell you guys a little bit about how I felt about that. Will it work for me? Will it not work for me? Some of the reasons why, some of the gear choices I had on that trip, why they worked, why they didn't work, what I liked about them. So let's go. So let's talk about a couple of gear choices that I really liked on this trip. Things that I take off and on, but on this trip I really came to like. So I've got my Appalachian Ultralight reach around backpack. Like this pack a lot. There are some quirks to it, some things that if I could change I would, but overall it serves the purpose really well. The fact that it is the Dyneema hybrid, so the DCF fabric, it sheds water extremely well. Additionally, if you look inside, all the seams are seam taped, so in a heavy downpour, I am confident that my gear is safe and dry inside of this pack. I still use a pack liner for my dry stuff, as I talked about on the last video, on this actual trip video, why I do that. But for the most part, this is going to keep everything inside dry. It's for those times when you open it up and it's raining out. Now, while I love the pack, this is actually the piece that I wanted to talk about. So on the panel that actually goes against your back, you have the option with this shock cord system that's here to insert 2, 4, 6, maybe even 8 pieces of like a Z-rest. So mine is a generic. It's 4 panels. One side is the silver reflective side, which can reflect some heat. The other side is just the orange side, but it's kind of a waffle pattern, just like any of the Z-rests. So it folds up really nicely. If you wanted to, you can fold it up so that it's in a much smaller square. But you can see here I have 4 panels. I fold them over double so that you have 2 layers thick, and slide that into the back pad. And what that does is it provides a nice soft cushion, so it doesn't matter how you pack your bag. You know, a lot of people talk about frameless packs, making sure that you pack it with soft stuff up against your back. By using this, you eliminate the need to do that. And the best part about this is that you now have a seat pad, a sit pad with you. You can slide under your butt anytime you sit down anywhere. So for those rainy days, if you don't want to be sitting on a wet log or a wet rock, or it's really cold and you don't want to lose heat through sitting on that really cold rock or whatever, or on the ground, you can put this thing down. Now I have taken it and opened it up and done it so that it's actually got a little bit of a backrest, so butt rest and a little bit of a backrest, and you can lean up against something. If you have a 6-piece one, it's going to be 2 pieces longer, so it's going to be quite a bit bigger, and it's going to give you even more protection. Now you can see mine's kind of worn here on the edge, and that's because that is the lower edge of the backpack, and times sitting it down or whatever, it's kind of gotten chewed up a little bit. No big deal. These things are super cheap. I think I got this one off of Facebook. Somebody had cut the top off because they had gotten an extra long one, or they were shorter. They were just looking for a torso length, so they cut it up. You can find a lot of people that do that. They cut them up, and then I think I got this for 10 bucks. So 10 bucks for this piece, and it works as a good sit pad. Also, if I'm using a 3/4 length under quilt and my feet get cold, I can throw this under my feet, bam, and now I've got insulation under my feet, keeping me warm. So I like taking pieces of gear that have multiple purposes, and this is one of those that has a lot of different purposes. So let's take a look at another piece of gear in my bag that I really liked on this trip. Okay, so next up is my cook kit. Now, specifically with this cook kit, what I really want to talk with you guys about is the stove that I've been using. So this is the Batch Stoves IS 2.0. This is the integrated pot stand from Batch Stoves, now available at Dutchware Gear. Talked a little bit about it on the video, and I've done a little bit of a boil test and review on it. Great little stove, has fiberglass wicking around the edges, has the 8 burner holes on the top, and because of the burn pattern, let's set this down, the burn pattern comes up to a point in the middle and then spreads out. So it flows up and out, so it hits the bottom of your pot and spreads out. So you've got a bigger area on the bottom of your pot. So it hits here, spreads out, covers the entire bottom in flames. And so I've been seeing some good efficiency with it, some good speed, some good boil times. It's rather lightweight. If you go back and watch the video where I actually did the review on it, I show it on the scale. But for an integrated pot stand, that's the great thing about this, is it's just a burner without this pot stand. To make it a true stove, it has to have something the pot can set on. I like a lot of the stoves, I can just set the pot right on top because it burns from the outside. This one's a little bit different because the burners are on the inside, so you had to have something to set it on. Otherwise, you were carrying something separate to set the pot on. I like having it all in one, and so that's why I really like this one. Performance has been great. The fact that I was able to blow it out, leave the fuel in there, and then in the morning when I went to do coffee again, I just put a little bit more fuel on the wick, lit it up, and it got going again, and I was able to do my next meal. Means I didn't just have to let it sit and burn out and waste fuel, which I do have to do with a lot of my other stoves because it gets up into the wicking that's inside of the stove and there's no way to recover it, and if you just let it sit, it's going to evaporate off. So this really worked out well on this past trip. I'll keep using it and let you know what I think. Now, point of note, I did a comparison video where I compared this stove with my Fancy Feast stove from Zelf. Let me back up a step and let you guys know that after that video, I had quite a few comments both on Facebook, messages, and on YouTube letting me know that that is not the way a Zelf stove should work and that something was not right with my stove. I since have reached out to Zelf, to wood gas stoves, and received a response extremely quickly, and they were extremely accommodating and quick to answer my questions and let me know that there was a short period of time right around the time when I bought my stove where they had issues with the fiberglass wicking being too tight, and so it would not actually wick the alcohol up into it. Hence the reason I cannot light my Fancy Feast stove from the wick on the outside with a pot on it. So they are sending me a new one. I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna do some more tests, see what the difference is between the performance of the one that I had that wasn't wicking and the one that they're sending me, and do another comparison test with this one, because right now those are probably my 2 stoves that I would choose to go out on a trip with, just because of the convenience. And as it starts to get colder now, having a wick is a good idea with an alcohol stove. And as you saw on my Eagle Rock Loop trip, when you start losing dexterity and you have something with a very small base, it's too easy to knock over. And if you're out and you really desperately need the warm food or that coffee in you, and you've knocked over your pot with your hot water in it, it's not a good day. And there's also the potential there for starting a forest fire. And I do not want to be responsible for something like that. So carrying a little bit of extra weight to have something that's a little bit more stable, although I love my Spiguyver stoves, it's all about being responsible and taking care of the environment that we like to go out and play in. So think about that. Good stove though. All right, let's take a look at the rest of the gear I've brought out here with me. Okay, for the next piece of gear that I want to talk about, I had to pan out a little bit, scroll this down so you guys could see the shoes I'm wearing. So these are the replacements to my Trail Glove 4 knits that I had the issue with on the white strip. So these ones are just the Trail Glove 4s. Let me pull one off, show you guys. This is a very minimalist trail shoe from Morel. Nice wide toe box. Very, very, very flexible shoe. It's a 0 drop. It's got a very minimal sole. I believe it's a 3mm insole. So very, very thin, minimalist shoe where you have a lot of contact with the ground, a lot of feel in the ground, and you can feel everything that's going on. And because of the way that these fit, you can see the lacing system kind of goes down along the side here. It pulls it all in really nice and gives you a very slipper, sock, glove-like feel. A very nice, aggressive tread pattern that provides really nice grip. It's a Vibram sole, so you know you can trust that. I have really been using extensively the minimalist shoes and specifically Morel trail gloves and vapor gloves, but trail gloves on the trail with a backpack for over a year now, and I've got to say I am in love with them. The lack of blisters has been awesome. I had been using the Hokas and completely 180 from the Hokas. The Hokas have huge soles, lots of cushion, really do a good job of protecting knees and preventing fatigue on the trail. But by using these, I'm saving almost a pound on my feet. So there's a huge fatigue savings there because they equate, you know, a pound on the foot to 5 on the back, something in that neighborhood. So think about that. There's a big weight savings there. But I love the feel, the contact with the ground and knowing what I'm stepping on. It teaches you to walk a little bit different and look at the surroundings and the trail that you're on a little bit different. You can't just plow ahead and just you know, throw caution to the wind. You've got to actually think about your foot placement. But I've had really, really good luck with these things. Really love the way they feel. Love the way that they walk. I did have that one pair, the knits, that I really, really wanted to love because they were very much like a sock, and so they integrated almost like a gaiter feature so that nothing could get down inside of them because they came up with a cuff around your ankle. But there were some issues there. Morel was very quick to respond and correct that issue, and so now I have these ones. I've had them out on 3 trips now and absolutely love them. I've got my Trail Glove 3s that I still use quite a bit. Absolutely love those as well. And then I've got the Vapor Gloves, which are an even thinner, more minimalist design that I use for walking. So great, great shoes here. Now, I'm not telling you these are the shoes for you. These are the shoes for me. These are what work for me. You've got to find what works for you. The thing that has really sold me on going with the minimalist design is that I have, since switching, not had one single blister anywhere on my feet. And that's dry, that's wet, that's with good fitting, ill fitting socks, no blisters whatsoever. That is what sold me. I was doing really well with the Hokas, but if you recall back on the Laurel Highlands through hike I did with Frozen, Gary, and Meerkat, there was a day where it started raining and we were walking through, you know, 6-8 inches of water going down the trail, and then it dried up towards the end of the day, but my feet were still wet, and on the uphills there was just enough friction that it caused blisters on both of my heels. I've done the same type of hiking. Heck, last week I was doing the exact same type of hiking where I was walking through water, I was having to go uphill, I was having to go downhill, and I was wearing these ones and not a hint of a hot spot. Just absolutely flawless the way these things have worked for me, so I'm going to continue to use them. Now, there has been one downside to them, and we're going to pan out real quick, go to this, and I will show you what that downside has been. Okay guys, so I said there was a downside to these shoes, and here's what that downside is. Now, I've got some sweats on here, and you can see that the back of my pant leg comes down to the back of this. Now, for some reason, these ones actually are stopping right there, but my hiking pants would go under like this. Because of the stack height being so much lower here, there's not that volume that keeps my pant leg up. And it's hard to find good hiking pants that are the right length for me. I wear like a 32-30, somewhere in that neighborhood. And most of the hiking pants end up being something like a 32-32, so they're a little bit too long. These are the pants I was wearing on that trip. These are my North Face zip-offs. Great pants. I've used these for a long time. Really love them. I ripped them out on the... where is it? On one of the... right here. I ripped it right here when I was out on the trail with Beekeeper and my son and his son. That was the Foothills Trail out in South Carolina. So I ripped it there, but it hasn't really spread. It's kind of stayed. These things dry extremely quickly, which has been really nice. I haven't washed these since coming back, but here's what I want to show you. So where the back went over my foot, so it ended up going over the back, it has totally shredded the back of these pants. This is the first time I've had this happen. I have hiked with these with my other trail gloves, and I don't know if the stack height is just a little bit different on these ones, but the back of the heel would go under, and so I was walking on it, and on rocky terrain it just shredded it, completely destroyed them. So I'm gonna have to find something where I can adjust the cuff, maybe some sort of like a Velcro that I can cinch it down like you do on some of the arms of some jackets. But so there's the only downside I have found yet, is that I destroyed a pair of pants. I may try and find some way to cut this, hem it up, do something so that I can still use these, and by doing that, keeping them from going under the heel of my pant or my shoes. Okay, so next up is my rain jacket. So this is my anti-gravity gear Sil Nylon rain jacket I've been using for quite a while, and I really do like it. It is super lightweight, compresses down to, I mean, nothing. Size of a baseball, softball, and so it hides in your pack. You don't notice you're carrying it until you need it. So some of the problems with it being Sil Nylon, anyone who has used Sil Nylon in the past knows that Sil Nylon can have a couple of bad design features, in that it can wet out and it can mist. So if you get into a really heavy downpour, if you have a tightly pitched tarp, you'll notice misting coming through it on some Sil Nylon. Now, I'm not going to say all Sil Nylon, but some Sil Nylon. I have noticed some getting through this. Additionally, because it's not breathable, it has generous pit zips, but I still find that I end up with a lot of condensation, a lot of wetness inside underneath. Where I mainly use this jacket is in the summertime. Now, when it's warm out, I don't even bother putting it on while I'm hiking, just because I'm gonna get wet. I'm gonna get wet either from sweat or from the rain. Might as well get a shower out of it and maybe clean off a little bit and not stink as bad at the end of the day. So most of the time I don't throw this on while I'm hiking. But what I do like is throwing this on while I'm at camp and being able to do chores without getting my dry clothes, my warm clothes that I've changed into after getting to camp, wet. So that's where this does work really well. Now, what I wish they had done, which would make this a much more effective jacket, you have seams. You've got the seam along the shoulder, you've got the seam on the edge of the sleeve, you've got the seam running around the hood. None of these are seam taped. They're all just rolled and sewn seams. So nothing there keeping the rain out. So I think that would help this jacket. But for what I normally use it for, it works great. It failed me completely on this trip in that, well, I can't say that. It did a pretty effective job of being a vapor barrier and trapping some warmth in on me until I was completely soaked through. Once you're soaked underneath and this is sticking to your skin and the wind is hitting it, it's really doing nothing. It is a trash bag that's stuck to you at that point. So I thought about it while I was on this trip. I thought about it on the drive home from this trip, and I really needed a new jacket, a new rain jacket, something that had a bit of a liner that would keep me a little bit warmer, and something that was more effective at keeping the wet out. So I just recently acquired and purchased this Columbia Titanium OutDry EX stretch hooded rain jacket. And what's cool about the Columbia stuff, now I will tell you, this came out of the box this morning. It's never seen rain, it's never been out on the trail. This one has a stretch to it, which is really nice. It fits. I've got a shirt, this kind of bulky Spiguyver backpacking sweatshirt on, and this fits over the top of both of them. So I know I will be able to wear base layers underneath this, which is something I was going for. It has a nice soft, it's got a fleece inner liner here, you know, a little bit of a stretchy liner here for a little bit of venting. It does have pockets on the outside, which my other one doesn't. They're zip-up pockets with a waterproof zipper. I got a really good deal on this one. It was online. Sun and Ski was selling it. It's a $180 jacket. It's on sale right now. You can see right there on the tag. If you find it right now, you may be able to still get that, but that's what I got it for. But what's really cool about this one, as opposed to many of the rain jackets that are out there, is that this one has its membrane on the outside. So its outside is completely waterproof. It has taped seams all along the outside, which makes a pretty cool look, but it also is extremely effective at shedding the rain. This will not wet out. Unlike Gore-Tex, where the membrane is beneath a fabric and they're welded together, this has nothing over the top that over time the DWR finish is going to absorb. So like I was saying, one of the big benefits here is that there is no DWR fabric on the outside of the membrane, and so there's nothing to wet out, and so this should shed the rain a whole lot better. And with the way that the interior is with this fleece, it's going to keep me a little bit warmer. It provides a nice soft feel, and it's going to have an area there where you can wick a little bit of the moisture. And supposedly this is a breathable material. We'll get it out on the trail. There are no pit zips, but we'll get it out on the trail and we'll take a look. It has Velcro adjustments on the back of the hood. It's got pulls inside the hood to cinch that up. It has Velcro attachments to adjust the sleeves. I believe, yes, there is a pull down at the waist belt to keep that cinched around you. So a lot of good features on this. Still an extremely lightweight option. We'll get them both on the scale at some point and let you guys know what the weights are. But that's what I decided to do with that piece of gear. This morning while we're out here, I have the Ridge Runner, the Warbonnet Ridge Runner that I took out on the trip last weekend. And I've got to say, there are a lot of people out there that absolutely love this hammock, and I can see why. It is a flat-laying, extremely comfortable hammock. Is it right for backpacking? Well, we've talked about some of those aspects. It's a little bit heavier. You've got the bars you have to take with you. There are some conversion sets out there or some lighter bars you can take. I've shown how I've adjusted the suspension to make it a little bit user-friendly for me, a little bit lighter and more of something I would take. But there's still some things to think about. Now, I had a 12-foot tarp, and I showed in the video that that 12-foot tarp actually did not even cover all the way to the ends of the suspension. Because of these triangles, these wide triangles at the end with the dog bones, that creates a very wide, I'm thinking you need at least a 13-foot tarp to really feel safe. Something with doors is probably going to help you feel a little bit safer. But for backpacking, where you're out for multiple days, you don't have the safety of just getting to your car or, you know, taking refuge somewhere else, I want something that's going to be a little bit wider if I'm taking this out backpacking. And that's one of the reasons I probably would choose not to take this backpacking. There are some other reasons for me, and we'll talk about those. So why don't I put the underquilt that I used on here, and we'll talk about that. All right, so what I have on here is my Underground Quilts Zeppelin 20 degree underquilt that I really love. I've taken this out on a lot of trips, and it has kept me extremely warm. It did on this trip as well. Now the temperatures only got down into the 40s, so it wasn't a huge test of a 20 degree quilt. But this quilt is perfect for me in this lengthwise, in that my feet are completely covered, my head is covered, everything is good. Plus I use my down pillow. Even in this, where they say you don't need a pillow, I still liked having a pillow in here. But here is the issue that I have. If you get a Ridge Runner and you're going to take it backpacking, got a nice little butterfly hanging out. If you're going to take it backpacking or even camping where you want to use your saddlebags, which are a killer feature of this hammock, you're going to have a couple of issues. So as you can see here, if you look over here, the edge of this quilt comes up higher than these cat cut recessed edges of the hammock. And what that does is it causes a problem that I can't really have my saddlebags hanging outside. The quilt would have to be down lower to have the saddlebags hang over. So right now they're down kind of between the quilt and the hammock. So I'm going to bring you guys in closer so we can take a good look at this and talk about that. Okay, so I'm laying in here, and again you can see the edges of this quilt come up above the cat cut, these edges, and so I've got my saddlebags on either side, but they're not hanging outside and hanging down. This is why I say if you're going to use this, you probably want to get a special quilt that's designed and cut just for this, so that these saddlebags still hang outside of your quilt and hang down. And here's the reason I say that. So right now the quilt is up here, the saddlebag is between the hammock and the quilt. If I throw something heavy in there, especially in the deep end, what it does is it pushes my underquilt out and away from the hammock and creates a void. So right in here, there's now a void, an air gap between the nice warmth of the underquilt and the fabric of the hammock. That's why you would want an underquilt that actually fits it really well. Otherwise, you throw stuff in here, it creates that gap, and you lose a little bit of insulation, you lose a little bit of warmth there, and you're not going to sleep quite as nicely as you would have. Now, if you can find a different way, say you have storage outside where you're just throwing your stuff, this system works great because it gives you plenty of coverage. Sure, somebody's going to say you're carrying extra weight because all of this is unused and so it's not necessary, but I'll tell you what, I am so toasty warm. It's about 40 degrees out right now, 35 to 40, and it is toasty warm laying in here. It's just, oh, underquilts are so awesome. So much better than sleeping on a pad. And a hammock with an underquilt versus the ground, no comparison. No comparison whatsoever. So that right there is one reason you may want to consider not using a bridge hammock as a backpacking hammock, is just gear storage and stuff creates a little bit of issue there. Now what I did find was, because of where my underquilt goes to right about here. Yeah, right here. You can actually see the line if you look. This area back here actually became a pretty good storage area because it kind of hangs a little bit lower, has a little bit of room there, and so you can see I dealt with it by not using these side ones, but instead taking my stuff and throwing it up here and unzipping and having stuff underneath my hammock on the ground. You could also double up something like a hammock chair, such as the hatchling, and use that as a gear loft and sling that underneath you. Thoughts? Now, I'd hit on a couple of other reasons I wouldn't probably take this out again as a backpacking hammock. I found myself at times wanting to sleep on my side, and with how narrow it is in the middle, you know, you lay on your back really, really well. But when you come to your side, it's very narrow right here. And if you want to go into the fetal position, it kind of becomes a little bit restrictive. You've got your butt up against this side, your knees are kind of coming up here, and so it just wasn't as comfortable as a conforming gathered end hammock to me. Not saying it's not what will work for you. If you sleep strictly on your back, this is about the best back laying hammock I've ever laid in, and I'm being completely honest with that. One of the big things that I really liked in a gathered end hammock, because of the way that you're laying on the diagonal, there's a little bit of a force on the two diagonal ends, so where your head is and where your feet are, and so you get pressure on the heels of your feet. I did not experience that whatsoever in this hammock, and that was a big plus, something I really liked about this hammock. But given the length of this hammock, the fact that I would have to carry even larger than my 12-foot tarp in order to really feel safe using this if a storm was to blow in, I think for me the cons outweigh the pros, and so this would not be a backpacking hammock for me. You could get it to a weight where it's a respectable backpacking hammock, easily compares with a tent in terms of weight and flexibility. However, for me, it's just not the right choice. But that's what's so awesome about the hammock community, is there's so many options out there. Even just for the backpacking community, there's so many different options out there. Tents, bivvies, just tarps, hammocks. You've got bridge hammocks, 90-degree hammocks, some hybrid type hammocks, gathered end hammocks. Whatever works for you, find it and use it. Well, I could have talked about a whole lot of gear today. I could have talked about every piece of gear that I've taken with me, gear that I've got sitting that I want to take with me, but I wanted to talk with you guys specifically about the gear that I'd used on this past trip, things that worked, things that didn't work, and reasons I would or would not use them again. And that's kind of what I did today. If you guys have any questions on anything we've talked about, go ahead and leave them in the comments down below. Please show your support for this channel. I have these hoodies and t-shirts out there for sale. The benefits or the profits from that go back to me being able to buy better equipment, buy things for review, and then put them out there for you guys to enjoy. Anything you guys can do to help out the channel is greatly appreciated. For those of you who have helped the channel by purchasing a t-shirt or a hoodie, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. I truly appreciate it. If you haven't before, subscribe to this channel, like the content, and check back every Tuesday where I have a new video up. Yes, I do miss a Tuesday now and then, but I make every attempt to have a video out every single Tuesday. I will see you guys down the trail.